Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Kathrin Meylida Annur. Today, I will present you about relative contribution of reading fluency and vocabulary knowledge in predicting Korean EFL learners' reading comprehension. An article by Yusun Kang. This article has three backgrounds or reasons. The first reason is to validate the simple view of reading, or SVR, as important contributors in reading comprehension. And then the second reason is to investigate the potential role reading, fluency, and vocabulary knowledge. The third one is to provide detailed evidence regarding what kind of vocabulary knowledge promotes reading comprehension. Also, vocabulary is also divided into vocabulary breadth and depth. The research objectives is to acknowledge if SVR, or the simple view of reading, is a valid model for reading comprehension, especially in Korean EFL learners. This is the primary objectives. There are also two more specifically objectives, which is the first one is to find out which reading subskills have significant effects in an augmented SVR model. And the second one is to find out whether vocabulary breadth or vocabulary depth that has stronger effects in Korean EFL learners. The theoretical framework is, of course, the SVR framework, simple view of reading. The SVR is divided into two, or we can say it can be represented into two things, which are the first one, word recognition or decoding, and the second one is language comprehension. Here are the research method. The first one is the participants. Participants are a total of 148 Korean EFL learners. And there are also conditions about this. The first condition is the Korean EFL learners must be in 7th or 8th grade attending a local public school. And the second condition is the learners had been learning English since their 3rd grade. And now, the instruments of this study for this research, there are 5 of them. The first one is the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Tasks 3, or PPVT 3. The second one is the Word Comprehension Subset of the Woodcock Reading Mastery Test Revised, or WRMTR. The third one is the Listening Comprehension Subtest of WLPBR, or just WLPBR. The fourth one is the Reading Fluency Subtest of the Woodcock-Johnson Diagnostic Reading Battery, or WJFRB. 3. And last instrument is the passage comprehension subtest of the Woodcock Reading Mastery Test Revised, or W or MTR. The method there are 5 methods in this based on the instrument. The first one is students were asking to point out the correct picture among some choices. By that, we can know how much vocabulary they know from how many right answer from them. And the second one is students were required to read antonyms, synonyms, and analogies in English. By that, we can also know how far they learn vocabulary, because especially synonyms, because maybe they know some words in particular word, but maybe in synonym they don't know that it's the same. So we can find out from that. The third one is students were required to listen to oral passages, and the oral passages needs to be spoken by native speaker with loud voice so they can hear it better. The fourth one is students were required to read simple sentences and choose true or false. Answer true or false question. And the last one is students were asked to read passage in English, and then they will be given question in a form of unfinished sentence, and they need to fill the empty space with their vocabulary. And here are the findings. The first finding is the participants didn't seem to have developed much oral language and comprehension abilities. It is reflected in their listening comprehension, receptive vocabulary, and word comprehension scores. The second finding is not only reading fluency, but also all other language-related measures were positively correlated with reading comprehension. The language-related measures are listening comprehension, vocabulary breadth, and vocabulary depth. The third finding is divided into direct paths to reading comprehension and indirect paths of reading comprehension. The direct paths itself start from reading fluency to listening comprehension, and the last one is to vocabulary breadth and depth. While the indirect paths, it's the opposite. It starts from vocabulary breadth and vocabulary depth to listening comprehension abilities, and the last one is reading fluency. And the last finding is the participants' reading comprehension in English was predicted by their listening comprehension abilities and vocabulary depth, not by reading fluency and vocabulary breadth. I will explain a little bit about vocabulary breadth and depth. Vocabulary breadth means how many words or how many vocab the students know. Just know, like maybe they have heard it or have read it. But when it comes to vocabulary depth, it means it's more deep than that. It means how much the students know about the vocabulary or the word they know. There are a lot of students maybe know about a particular word, but don't know how to use it. Like maybe if we ask them, do you know apple? And then maybe they say they know. But when we ask about is it noun or verb, maybe they don't know about that. Or like maybe they don't know where should they put the word apple in a sentence. So the vocabulary depth obviously is very important in vocabulary learning. So the conclusion the conclusion is reading fluency no longer showed notable direct effects on reading comprehension. Because in oral language measures, listening comprehension abilities and vocabulary depth is more like being focused, and fluency doesn't really matter in students' vocabulary. The same as the vocabulary breadth. If they just only know about the word but don't know how to use it, so it doesn't really useful, right, in their learning. And in Korean EFL learners, this is the result that they don't really don't seem developed in reading fluency and vocabulary breadth, but when it comes to vocabulary depth and listening comprehension, it can develop their vocabulary and reading comprehension. Vocabulary depth was identified as a significant contributor to Korean EFL learners' reading comprehension. And conclusion is the participants' reading comprehension in English was significantly predicted by their listening comprehension abilities and vocabulary depth, right? So vocabulary depth was identified as the biggest contributor in Korean EFL learners' reading comprehension because it facilitates reading comprehension with language and literacy development. I think that's all from me. Thank you so much for your attention.